So we're going to talk a little bit about the location of the Pentagon, commuting to and from the area, the cost of living close to the Pentagon, as well as what your BAH will be. And then we're going to go into some different neighborhoods you may be able to look for properties in that will give you, a nice commute home within your budget. And then we'll finish up by talking about the schools and just a few other things about the area. The Pentagon is located in Arlington, although it technically does have a Washington, D.C. address. And it is the largest employer. It's like the largest office complex in the world. They have 28,000 military and civilian employees, not to mention another 3,000 employees that do non-defense related support work. They have a food court and all that. So they have other people who work inside of the Pentagon as well. So if you're a family member of someone who will be working at the Pentagon, one of the things you'll notice is this base is not open like a lot of other places. You may be used to have an opportunity to visit or get on base and have things like commissary, things of that nature. And that's not the case with the Pentagon, because the Pentagon is also home to the Department of Defense. And so it is a huge office building, not like any other location. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about that today.
This is where the Pentagon is located at. It's right outside of Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Crystal City, or the National Landing Area, which is becoming more and more popular because Amazon HQ2 is located in and around this area.
Now, a couple things to keep in mind when PCSing to the Pentagon is that the further you are from DC, the more affordable the homes are going to be and the more square footage you're going to get. So we're going to talk about that when we cover a couple of our different neighborhoods. Another thing to consider is going to be the cost of commuting. So a lot of people may choose to live further out and they'll figure they'll just commute because they can get more home. But then you're still going to have, the cost of commuting to consider. Now, military personnel, public transportation is covered. You will receive either a stipend or a Metro card, something to cover your public transportation costs, but still, you're still going to have that time cost of commuting. So expect a normal commute to be at least 30 minutes, maybe an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, because we have a lot of traffic in the DC metro area. And depending on where you choose to live, that commute time can grow exponentially. A lot of people who PCS to the Pentagon are going to choose to stay within Northern Virginia, since the Pentagon is in Virginia. One of those reasons is because Northern Virginia has really highly rated public schools. And another reason is, although home prices tend to be higher in Northern Virginia, we do have lower taxes than both DC and Maryland.
Yeah, so even though the Pentagon is located right here at the border, you could say, of Washington, D.C., which is over in this area, and then we have Maryland towards the southeast of the Pentagon, you're still looking at you still have to deal with the DC public school system. You also have to deal with Prince George County Public School.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are better public schools in the
Montgomery County area.
Mm-hmm. But then, as you can see, your commute becomes a little bit, it becomes arduous, because either you're going to go into DC to get up to the Montgomery County area, or you're going to travel down George Washington Parkway and try to cross, well, not try to cross, but you'll cross 495 right over here. So it just becomes a little bit more challenging to get there. So that's why a lot of people either decide to, depending on what your budget is, to either go into the Arlington area or to go into Fairfax County, like
the suburbs of Fairfax County. If you can show them the loop of the Beltway, then you'll do well to learn what inside and outside the Beltway are. So inside the Beltway is this area Abraham is tracing. It's a 64-mile loop that is going to be the surrounding suburbs of Virginia and Maryland, those suburbs that surround the Washington, D.C. area. And typically, if you're inside the Beltway, you're going to spend a little bit more money to be inside the Beltway, because it's also kind of like being in the mix of where things are happening, right?
It's also more convenient. It's easier to get to different places. Most of the metros have stops inside the Beltway, and I would say that there are, of the, I guess, 5 or 6 places we're going to talk about, 5 of them are inside the Beltway today. So inside the Beltway is more expensive. You're going to get less land, especially for the price ranges we're going to be talking about today, just because you are price sensitive when it comes to how your BAH is being used, and it's limited, right? So unless you come in here with 2 income household,
Yes.
then your housing becomes a little bit more of a obstacle.
Absolutely. And so one of the things we talk about is, there are three things that most people consider when relocating relocating to Northern Virginia. It's usually going to be commute time, the type of home, and the price. And oftentimes we say that you may have to give one of those three up in order to get the property that you want, or you'll have to kind of prioritize those three and figure out what you want to do. And if budget is your priority, then you're definitely going to have to trade off and spend a little bit more time on the road. And so because of that, a lot of people who are stationed at the Pentagon will still choose to live in the city of Alexandria or Fairfax County, because those are going to offer you some more affordable options, or at least more variety when it comes to options than just staying in Arlington, because at $600,000, well, the price point that we're going to cover today, you're not going to find as many properties. So that's something to keep in mind.
That's true. And even in Arlington has good public school system, but in South Arlington, they have more, I would say, average for the area schools. And so you're not going to get into the better school highly rated schools until you get into the North Arlington area, which then you also have to deal with the fact that prices, explode.
Absolutely. So as we were saying, commute is definitely something you want to think about. We can't stress it enough, because it is of huge importance when you're in this area, because we have legendary congestion, not just on the main highways, but sometimes it could just be incomprehensible, the number of cars on the road, because you have to think people are not only commuting to the Pentagon, but people will be also going that same way to get into the district.
One thing I want to talk about, because I know we are talking about commuting right now, is one of your options for commuting is the metro station or the metro stop. So there is a metro stop that actually pulls up right underneath the Pentagon right here. And then there's also a VRE stop, which stops right over here
in Crystal City.
I think these are the tracks right here. I think the stop is right here. So it's super convenient to get to the Pentagon using public transportation. And Crystal's going to talk to you a little bit about the shuttle buses.
Absolutely. You want to take all of those, all of the transportation options into consideration. So a number of people take public transportation to the Pentagon. So commute options, as Abraham said, you do have the Metro Rail system, but they also have the Metro Bus that kind of services those areas in between that the stations don't have service. And we have a number of local buses depending on where you live. So you have Arlington, the Fairfax Connector, and Fairfax, and then omnibus available in Prince William County. There's also the Dod Shuttle, which operates a fairly robust shuttle system throughout the entire capital region, as well as the option of driving. You'll definitely want to consider the hub lanes and express lanes, figuring out if you are able to commute or even do ride sharing, which we talk about frequently here on the channel, which is slugging, where you ride with other people. So you have a couple of different options when commuting, but definitely you want to think about that when choosing a home, because we know a lot of people that, spend an hour plus on the road each day to have the type of home that they want.
That's true. I would also say that because the Pentagon is such a large commercial space with several offices, several departments, the community options all tend to go to the Pentagon. So you're going to have flexible options throughout the region, whether or not you're in the Woodbridge area, which we'll talk about, or even to the Gainesville area. Like every place in Northern Virginia has a way to get to the Pentagon that doesn't have to be dependent on you yourself.
Absolutely. And that's the first of, so this is our third video this week. We're talking about PCS'ing 2. We talked about Fort Belvoir on Monday, and we talked about Quantico on Wednesday, and neither of those have that same type of public transportation access. Neither of them have metro lines that take you directly there. Yes. Although you could get the VRE, depending on location, going to Quantico. There are buses that will get you near Fort Belvoir, but still not the robust type of system that we have going into the Pentagon.
You could essentially say that Northern Virginia was built for the Pentagon.
In the service of the Pentagon and DC. Absolutely. Yes. The absolute, I mean, that's the sole purpose of these suburbs of Northern Virginia, is really to service people who work either for the federal government, military, in service of the Department of Defense.
Yeah. So we're all here as laborers for the Pentagon. Thank you, Pentagon overlords. Also, what's cool about the fact that we have the Pentagon here is that we have so many Fortune 500 companies who do government contracting service or offer government contracting services who have situated their headquarters here just so that they could be as close to the action as possible to negotiate their contracts.
Now, due to the proximity to the nation's capital, Northern Virginia has some of the highest real estate in the country, highest cost of living, one of the highest cost of livings in the nation. And so living closer to the employment hubs, of course, is going to be a little bit more expensive. So keep that in mind. And because of that proximity to the capital and because of the high cost of living, the BAH here is rather high. It's considerably higher than many other places. So the BAH in 2022 for an E5 with dependents is $23.88. And without dependents, it's $21.75.
Just so that for the people who are watching this who are not affiliated with the military, BAH stands for Basic Allowance for Housing. So when you're in the military, there is a stipend, more or less, that is given to you for your housing. And a lot of military personnel use their BAH to either purchase properties or rent. So that's their housing costs.
Now, if you're an officer, you're looking at, let's see, we're going to use an 05 for this example. So a BAH without dependents is going to be $29.61, and with dependents, we're looking at $37.26. So what we did was we looked at, let's say we're using an 05 with dependents. So that's $27.36. We're saying for our examples today, that would put you in like that $625,000 price range for when buying the property. Now, of course, that's going to differ depending on what interest rate you're able to secure, your taxes and HOA fees. But for the purpose of this video and the properties we're going to look at when we're talking about each of these different neighborhoods, we're going to go ahead and say you're in like that $625 price range. Now, one thing I want to point out is in Virginia, we do have the highest VA loan limits. So if you are okay with spending more than your BAH, the loan limit here, there was a huge increase in 2022. So the VA loan limit here is now $970,000.
That's right.
That's a huge, that's a lot of money. You can find a home in almost any part of Northern Virginia at that price point.
Now, will you be able to qualify?
That depends on your income and a few other things, right?
But one thing I want to kind of point out is that because we have such a high VA loan limit here, you may be able to keep your property wherever you're coming to us from, right? So wherever you're stationed at, maybe you have a $300,000 or $400,000 property, you can keep that property and you could actually have more than one property under your VA loan eligibility requirement. So before you sell, talk to us, and the best way to talk to us is through the Perfect Home questionnaire. There's actually Crystal will tell you a little bit about the Perfect Home questionnaire.
Okay, so there is a link in the description to the Perfect Home questionnaire, so you'll fill that out and one of us will reach out to you to discuss your upcoming move. So we'll talk about your timeline as well as what you're looking for in your next home when you relocate to Northern Virginia. So please fill that out. The link is down below in the description, and we'll get back in touch with you soon.
Look at that. That was great. That's what I'm
now, one more thing I want to touch on before we move on is that, a lot of people are probably used to your BAH covering all your living expenses. Right. And for many people, they find that is not the case here just because the cost of living is so high. So you really have to wrap your head around the fact that you may only be able to make your mortgage payment with your BAH, or you may have to add a little bit of money to that to make your mortgage payment, depending on the neighborhood you want to be in. So just keep that in mind. What we tried to do with this video is find properties that would stay within that $600,000 range. I don't think anything I chose for today's video is above 600, just to show what we could get at that 05 BAH. But realistically, you could very well be above that price point, specifically if you want to be in some of the areas that are closer to the Pentagon.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. I would also say that because of your limitations based on your income, if you do have a 2-household income, you're going to find that your options open up really, really nicely in this region.
Absolutely.
But the average sales price just in like the Fairfax County is like almost $700,000. So, you are constrained to what type of housing type that you're all going to be able to purchase. And we're going to kind of talk about how you could probably find that single family house that you may be more accustomed to. But most people in Northern Virginia in that particular price range, they're townhouse living. And so first up, we're going to take a look at Arlington, since that's where the Pentagon is located. And so Arlington is going to be separated into two parts. You have North and South Arlington.
And they have a wide variety of homes in Arlington. You definitely want to do your research because you're going to see some high and mid-rise condos, townhouses, bungalows, Cape Cods, even some really large grand estates, specifically in northern Arlington. They're separated. North and South Arlington are separated by Route 50.
Yep.
And North Arlington is typically where you're going to find your larger, more expensive homes. And then in Southern Arlington, also just to point out, that's also where you're going to find your most highly rated schools in Arlington. And then in South Arlington, you are going to see a little bit more racial diversity, and a little more low income families live in that area as well. There's going to be income diversity there.
Yes. So it's really just the if you watch TV shows and they talk about the people across the tracks, in Arlington the tracks is Route 50.
Yeah, but even still, you're still going to find some high priced homes in Southern Arlington as well. They're typically not going to be as high as North Arlington, but you're still looking at maybe some $800,000 and $900,000 homes in South Arlington.
Right.
So when we say lower price, we don't mean cheap.
Right.
We just mean lower in respect. Lower in respect to North Arlington. So let's take a look at our example today.
Well, before we move on, one thing you want to consider when you move in here is that everyone makes a lot of money here, or more money than you're probably used to in a traditional market, right? In most traditional markets, you have a pocket of people who make a lot of money and they live in really nice neighborhoods, right? The grass is cut.
Well, all of Northern Virginia is upper middle class.
Exactly.
The entire area. The entire area is mostly made of upper middle class families.
So you're going to be hard pressed to find like rundown neighborhoods or impoverished school systems or metal detectors at the doors. I'm just kidding. But anyway.
All right. So let's take a look at the first house they're going to look at is going to be in Arlington. And this is actually a double. So this is like a twin or a semi-detached property. It is in South or Southern Arlington and it sold for $595. It has a detached garage. Approximately 1,300 square feet. It's only 2 levels. And I say only because a lot of homes in Fairfax County, in Northern Virginia, are going to be 3-level properties. It's on a small lot, less than 1/10 of an acre. And we're looking at a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, nicely updated home. And this is about what you can expect for $600,000 in Arlington. So more than likely not a single family. If you do find a single family at this price point in Arlington, it's probably gonna be on a smaller side. Think 2 bedrooms, maybe 1.5, 1 bath. So this is something I would say is typical of this price point in Arlington. Now, conversely, as I said, they do have a lot of high rises and condos in Arlington. And so you can also find, a 2-bedroom condo closer into like that Boston or Clarendon area in that price point. For the most part, we deal with people who are looking for more single family and townhomes, which is why I gave this as our example. But you definitely can find condos in the area within this price point as well.
And we also are starting to see a trend where we have officers, top ranking officials who their family may live in a community that they already love, and they just come up here, buy a condo because they know that they're going to be here for maybe 3 to 5 years, stay in that condo close to the Pentagon, and then just maybe travel home
on the weekends. Absolutely. Because
you are next to, let me just pull this up. You are pretty close to the Reagan National Airport. Like it's essentially next door, right here. So a lot of people are accustomed to just traveling back home to go to their families back in some lower cost of living area.
That absolutely does happen. So the next area we're going to talk about is actually going to be the closest you can be to Arlington without being in Arlington. So now we're going to move on to the city of Alexandria, which is going to be just 6 miles from the Pentagon. So a lot of people like Old Town Alexandria because you have lots of shops, boutiques, restaurants. It's a really walkable area. It's right on the Potomac River. But Old Town is definitely going to be a more high cost area. Yes. You can, again, find some condos that are going to be a little bit less, but you're definitely looking at more condos and townhomes when you're in Old Town. Now, if you move on to Delray, which is a neighboring neighborhood, there just outside of Old Town, you're going to see more homes, more single family homes, but they're definitely not going to be in that $600,000 price point. And again, they're going to be a little bit on the smaller side too. Think more of a bungalow style home, not necessarily on a huge lot. And so if you go a little bit further out, still in the city of Alexandria, you do have some areas that have single family homes and some townhomes. The area is really popular because it is, it's just north of Beltway. It is part of the city of Alexandria. So that means you're part of the city of Alexandria school system, not Arlington or Fairfax County. And depending on the neighborhood, there are some challenges with finding highly rated schools in the city of Alexandria. So that's also something to consider if you have littles. Right.
Yes. What are also kids? Yes. City of Alexandria, I think, is a good candidate because you have a quick commute to the area. And so if your littles are very young, then moving to the city of Alexandria isn't that big of a deal because you're not really too reliant on the public school system yet. But you do have to deal with the fact that the city of Alexandria is going to have lower rated public school system, and they're going to have the highest concentration of private schools out of any other region in Northern Virginia. So you do have a population of residents who are already accustomed to paying top dollar for their properties and sending their kids to private schools. But the city of Alexandria has, I would say, one of the most interesting housing property types, housing stock there is on the market. Like you really can't find some of the houses that are available in the city of Alexandria, either in Old Town proper with those lovely row homes, or you have condos that have river views. You don't really have condos in Arlington that have river views like that. They may see the river,
but you won't be on the river.
Right.
And you definitely have the opportunity, yes, to be on the river when you're in Old Town. But again, the city of Alexandria is not just limited to Old Town, although that's what it's most known for. So we're going to take a look at a property here that sold for $600,000. So we have a nice split level home, 3 levels. It is on a third of an acre lot. So that's a substantial size lot for being so close to the city, and for $600,000 at that. So this is a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, updated home, about 1,600 square feet. It's a little bit older. So you see it doesn't have that open floor plan.
Which is going to be hard to come by in Old Town in general, or just the city of Alexandria. But what's nice about the city of Alexandria, you even see this in this property, is that because of the price ranges and because of the income levels that we're dealing with of the residents, a lot of the homes are going to already be tastefully updated. They still have like some of their charm, but you're going to see some newer windows, newer kitchens. It's super, super cute.
Absolutely. And just another thing, if you're looking in the city of Alexandria, as I said, it's the closest you can get to the Pentagon without being in Arlington. And so commute time, you're looking at, as short as 12 minutes. And, with traffic, if you're traveling during peak times, you're looking at, it could be as many as 40 minutes. You're also going to have access to the yellow line of the metro, as well as a couple of bus lines.
How insane is that this place is right next door to the Pentagon, and you could still have a 40-minute commute?
You can still have a 40-minute commute.
It's not a large area either. But if you're on some part of the town that maybe doesn't have access to the metro, or is just the far reaches of it, it could still be almost an hour. That's crazy.
So next up, we're going to move to a couple of different areas in Fairfax County. Now, Fairfax County is pretty big. I say this all the time, but if it were a city, it'd be the 10th largest city in the country. We have well over 1 million residents in Fairfax County. And because it's so big, we're not going to be able to talk about the county as a whole. We're just going to pinpoint and highlight a couple of different neighborhoods and subdivisions that we find to be popular with military personnel.
And just to give you an example of how large Fairfax County is. So at the southern, southeastern tip, you have like the Mount Vernon area here. But then at the most southern tip, you have Lorton. But then to the western, the most western tip, you have like the Centerville area, Chantilly, and at the north western tip, you have like the Herndon Reston area. So
all of this to Great Falls, McLean, all of that is Fairfax County.
All of this is Fairfax County. So covering all of this would take, several days.
So what we're going to do is just focus on those areas that are a few that are closest to and that we find to be really popular. So we're going to start off with Lower Alexandria, and this is going to be Alexandria, Fairfax County, not to be confused with the city of Alexandria that we just talked about. So Abraham, you could show them Fort Hunt, Mount Vernon, and Kingstowne. Those are the 3 areas we're going to look at.
So we have the Fort Hunt area up here, and then we have the Mount Vernon area really towards this bottom, anything like south of, they call this Route 1 or Richmond Highway right here. And then we have where we live, which is in the Kingstowne area. And this is all in Alexandria, Fairfax County, not to be confused with City of Alexandria.
Absolutely. And so Fort Hunt and Kingstowne are both going to be about 12 miles from the Pentagon, and then Mount Vernon is about 19 miles away. Now, if you're commuting from Fort Hunt or Mount Vernon, you could just go to up the Parkway.
Right. It's up the George Washington Parkway that runs along the river right here, the Potomac River.
Okay. And then as far as Kingstowne, you do have access to the Blue Line Metro as well as a few buses. So commutes from these areas aren't too bad. Time wise, you're looking at 30 to 50 minutes. And again, that's pretty much from all of those places. Kingstowne, you might be able to cut a few minutes, maybe get there in 20 with no traffic. But on the high end, you're probably looking at like a 50-minute commute if you're driving from those three places. Now, these three places are quite different from one another. Fort Hunt and Mount Vernon, you're going to see a lot of older single family homes. When I say older, mostly a lot of them were built like in the 70s. You're also going to have a little bit more land. Kingstowne is going to be a newer area. It's a large planned community that began being built in the 90s up into the early 2000s. So you're looking at a lot more townhouses. Although there are single family homes and condos, the neighborhood is made primarily of townhouses. So you're going to end up with newer, more open floor plans, but definitely less space.
Yes.
As far as, and when I say less space, I mean less space as far as the size of the home, because you're probably looking at 3,000 to 4,000 square feet in a single family home in Fort Hunt or Mount Vernon. But you're also looking at a smaller footprint as far as how much land you have, because even if you were to have a single family home, chances are the lot will probably be a little bit smaller.
And when Crystal says 3,000 to 4,000 square feet, she's also including the basement, right? So the below grade space is also going to be included in that, like total square footage.
Yes, because as I said, a lot of the homes, or most of the homes here, are going to be 3 levels: basement, main, and upper level. Let's take a look at our example. And I'm actually going to show you guys a house. This would be considered the greater Kingstowne area. This is in a subdivision called Hayfield Farm. This is a really popular neighborhood in the greater Kingstowne area with our military families. And so this is another split. This is actually a split foyer, 2-level home, 4-bedroom, 2-bath. It's sold for $592,000. You can see it's a little bit older. And you can also see it's not going to be quite as open as some newer properties. The kitchen is going to be off to the side a little. But this is what you can expect as far as a single family. You're going to find something older for $600,000. You're not really looking at anything that's newer or updated in any of these parts of Fairfax County at this price point for a single family home.
Very true. To get the updated properties, you're going to have to spend almost another $100,000 just to start to get maybe a more open kitchen or upgraded appliances and whatnot.
All right. If you're still with us and you are considering relocating to Northern Virginia, we just want to remind you to check out the Perfect Home Questionnaire that is going to be linked down below in the description. Whether you're PCS'ing to the area or if you're moving within Northern Virginia, we would be happy to assist you with that. So click the link down below in the description box to fill out your Perfect Home Questionnaire, and we will schedule a virtual meeting between you and Abraham to discuss your upcoming move.
Yes, excellent. I look forward to talking to you about coming to the area. All right, so next up on our list is Springfield. This is going to be just to the west of Alexandria, Fairfax County, but this is still inside of Fairfax County. This is, again, another popular destination for our military families because you get single-family homes. You also get a little bit more yard space. I would say that you start to get access to better rated public schools as well, which becomes more of a concern for individuals, especially we see for officers who most likely have some type of advanced levels of degrees.
And it's also a really popular neighborhood because there are lots of parks and things to do outside within the neighborhood. It's centrally located. It kind of straddles 95. Most of it is outside of the Beltway, but it has nice proximity to, depending on where you're located, you may be close to the Blue Line, Franconia, Springfield Metro. You also, if you're closer to that side, on the western side near Burke, you may be closer to take to the VRE.
Yes.
So there are a lot of options, including a shuttle through the neighborhood. So there are a lot of options for commuting to the Pentagon. And overall, it is a really popular neighborhood, as Abraham said, because you're definitely going to find more single family homes. But at the same time, there are a lot of townhouses available as well.
Yes. You also get you're closer to more of like outdoor amenities versus having more city amenities. So it's just a trade-off.
Absolutely, because you're surrounded by parks. So you can see all the green space in Springfield. You're surrounded by parks, whether that be, you're not very far from Berkeley. Lake, but at the same time, you have Hidden Pond, which is one of our favorite parks, as well as if you're in North Springfield, you have Lake Acatink. So there are a lot of parks. So if you're kind of into outdoors, there's lots of different things to do in Springfield. Let's take a look at that property that I pulled up for Springfield.
Excellent.
All right, so we have here a single family home, a little bit bigger than the last one we saw. It's going to be a 5-bedroom with 3.5 baths, and it sold for just exactly $600,000. Now, this one does not have a garage, and again, you're looking at something that's a little bit older, a little bit dated. Rather than something that has been updated, but that's to be expected in this price point when you're in Fairfax County. For the most part,
you still have single family. You're still living in a single family home.
Mm-hmm.
You're also, you're still within that hour-long commute to the Pentagon as well. So.
Absolutely, you're right. It's really about the same commute as from Kingstowne. You're looking at that 20 to 50-minute mark.
Exactly.
Commuting from Kingstowne. So I mean, commuting from Springfield, which is the same as in Kingstowne. So you're gonna, for that same $600,000, you're gonna get a little bit more space, and also have more options for single family homes, because as I said, although there are some single family homes in Kingstowne, most of the neighborhood is going to consist of townhouses.
Exactly. I would say that you're trading off amenities, right? So you're either going for outdoor amenities versus more creature comforts. If you're living in Kingstowne, you're living in Kingstowne for a reason. We have access to a lot of stores, grocery stores,
shopping entertainment,
options.
movie theaters. It's really the type of neighborhood, if you're interested in doing things, there's a lot to do. Not necessarily outdoor activities, but just within the community, there's a lots of shopping and other entertainment options.
That's correct. Our next location on our list is going to be Falls Church. This is going to be right outside of Arlington. Let me pull this up on the map for us.
And so Falls Church is going to be, it's actually really funny. It's only 9 miles from the Pentagon, which is just a little bit closer in than, Kingstowne or Springfield, but you're looking at the same commute because it's such a busy area. So you're still looking at 15 minutes, 45 minutes on the high end when you're commuting from Falls Church. And it's because it's really close to Arlington, and that's where all the traffic is.
Yes. You also have to deal with the fact that you're kind of coming, the best way to describe like the DC or our metro area is that we have these 2 arteries that are going into the main center. We have 66, which is a main road coming from the west, and then we have a road that interstate called 95 that's coming up from the north. Falls Church is kind of around the 66 side of things, and 66 traffic on 66 is just horrible because it's feeding all of the Westerners into the region. And in the West, we have a lot of new construction, so it's highly densely populated areas. But the development just keeps on going, no matter how far you go on this little map right now.
And so we look at Falls Church, you have to keep in mind also that we have Falls Church, and there's also a City of Falls Church. So we're going to talk about those 2 together. City of Falls Church is a little pocket area within Falls Church, and it's going to have its own school system outside of the Fairfax County school system, but still highly rated. So really popular. It's actually a quite popular area, but it's really small. So most people, when looking in Falls Church, you don't say, I'm going to live in the City of Falls Church.
Right.
You decide to live in Falls Church, and you might find a house in the City of Falls Church just because it is so small.
Yeah, there's not enough sales to say that you're just going to live in that exclusive area.
Absolutely. But there are a lot of entertainment options in the area. There's a theater, lots of restaurants. They have a really cool kind of like downtown area in Falls Church. So it's a really popular area. Let's take a look at our example property. Now, this is going to be our first townhouse because you're probably not going to find a single family house under $600,000 in Falls Church. We are helping a client. And part of this is because of the boom of Amazon, because of its location and proximity to Arlington. They really saw a huge increase in their prices over the last couple of years. If you recall, we were helping a client a few years ago, and you couldn't get a single family for $600 a few years ago. So it's next to impossible now.
Yes.
And so this is our first townhouse that we're taking a look at. It is a 3-level with 3 bedrooms, 3.5 baths. But as you can see, more updated, it's slightly newer than the single family homes that we saw in some of the previous areas. And this is really what you can expect a townhouse in Northern Virginia to look like. all of them were probably built over the last 30 years, or most of the townhouses were built over the last 30 years, and they pretty much look the same. There's like a collection of builders who built everything around here. So if you've seen one, you've seen a lot of them.
Yes, there's not going to be much diversity in the townhouse layout. You're usually looking at a basement level, which is going to contain your family room, and then you have a main level, which is going to contain your kitchen, your dining options, and then you have the third level, which is going to contain your bedrooms. So.
Absolutely, and that's just the case for all townhouses pretty much throughout the entire Northern Virginia area. And now lastly, we're going to move on to Woodbridge. And a lot of people choose to move to Prince William County, Woodbridge specifically, because you're definitely going to get significantly more space in Woodbridge than you would anywhere in Fairfax County, Arlington, or City of Alexandria within that same budget.
Absolutely. And because I mentioned this earlier, because you're working at the Pentagon, there's a lot of options for you to get to work. Without you having to drive, right? There's slugging options, which is where ride sharing, as you would call it. There's the VRE option. There's also buses that go from the Woodbridge area weave throughout the entire Woodbridge area that'll get you to the Pentagon. So you do have options to not necessarily commute on your own. Absolutely.
And so the closer you are into, 95 or Route 1, the quicker your commute, because Woodbridge is a large area. It does go a little bit further west, not necessarily right up on I-95.
Right.
So you definitely want to keep that in mind. But living in Woodbridge is going to you're going to be close to a lot of creature comforts, especially if you're close to 95.
Yes.
You have, a shopping mall, restaurants, IKEA, lots of big box stores that you're used to seeing in any major city. In this cluster, Woodbridge, you're definitely going to see those types of amenities.
Exactly. Most of the creature comforts are going to be located right here off of 95, in between these two exits right here. Like Crystal was saying, the shopping center, which is going to be the Potomac Mills Mall. And then we have, I think this is called Stonebridge.
Stonebridge.
And that's going to be where your Wegmans is located, and some other eateries.
Let's take a look at our example property in Woodbridge. All right, so as you can see, significantly larger house, right? We're looking at over 3,000 square feet. And in this price point, depending on your location and how far south you're going to go, will determine how far your $600,000 is going to go. But this is the only place where you can consistently find a home for under $600,000, single family home.
Exactly.
So you have several options. You can even get a fully updated, newer, not new construction, but something newer built within the last 5 to 10 years in this $600,000 price point.
That's true. We actually helped a client just in November, PCS here to the Pentagon, and they were able to purchase a nice 4-bedroom.
That's true. 4-bedroom single family home for under $600,000. So absolutely, you do have options in this area because your money just goes farther, and it's because you are going to be farther out. You're looking at probably an hour commute.
Yes.
I know sometimes you could probably pull up an address right now in Google Maps and it might even tell you 30 minutes, but realistically during peak travel times, you're probably looking at an hour plus. We just want you to be realistic about the commute and the time, because a lot of people who choose to move to Prince William County will tell you that they can get to the Pentagon in 40 minutes. And I'm telling you, if you can get to the Pentagon in 40 minutes from Springfield, you cannot get there from Woodbridge. Right? Because we already told you Falls Church can take 45 minutes.
Yes. Inside of City of Alexandria, it could take you 40 minutes.
Yeah. So we know Prince William County is not taking you 40 minutes, but a lot of people do choose to move to the area because you're just going to get so much more house in Prince William County, and everything else remains virtually the same. When you move into these different neighborhoods, you're going to have the same type of neighborhood, the same type of neighbors. You're going to have a very similar experience no matter what neighborhood you move into. And so a lot of people are not used to townhome living. They're not used to shared walls or having a relatively small backyard. And moving to Prince William County, I mean, that lot on that property was over 1/3 of an acre.
Yes.
Right. And so when we're looking at these properties, and if you're someone who wants a lot of space, Prince William might be the best bet for you.
It's just trade-off. It's all about trade-offs, right? So Prince William County is going to offer you or afford you more bang for your buck, but you will have you have to deal with the fact that there's lower rated public schools, right? And so most times we see people have this kind of this pull and tug between, do I want my littles to go into a better rated school system and a better rated school, and then I'll need to reduce the size of the property. But not only reduce the size of the property, you might also have to increase your budget. So that's the thing. You might reduce your commute
increase your budget and get a smaller property.
Yes.
And when we just want to point out, because we're moving on to schools next anyway, is that throughout Northern Virginia, the state is known to have highly rated public schools.
This area, not the state.
Well, throughout Northern Virginia as a whole is known to have highly rated public schools. Now, there are a few pockets here and there that have lower rated schools, but even those schools are oftentimes more highly rated when comparing, like when ranking them against other schools in the state and other school districts, they're still more highly rated. So you have to realize that, but because you're in an area, an upper middle class area, the expectations for the schools are high in general.
Yes.
And so overall, you're looking at pretty solid, highly rated public school systems. Overwhelmingly, over the last few years, Arlington County has had either the number 1 or number 2 public school system in the state. That has been they go back and forth with Loudon a few times.
And this is due to the fact that Arlington has the highest concentration of individuals with advanced degrees, and so individuals who are valuing education more just happen to live in Arlington, so they're going to have higher expectations for those school systems. Absolutely. They also make more money in Arlington in general, too.
Absolutely. So yes, that's true as well. And so then Fairfax County is also known to have high rated public schools. However, it's going to depend on your location. Based upon our areas we talked about today, I think the best rated schools are going to be in that Springfield area. They're home to some of the most highly rated high school and elementary schools in Fairfax County, or at least in Southern Fairfax County. Because another thing to point out is the further north you are in Northern Virginia, typically the more highly rated the schools, but also the more expensive the homes. Yeah. And so there definitely is a correlation between those two things. So keep that in mind. But Springfield is an area where it's a little bit further south. It's to the west, technically here in Fairfax County, but it does have a number of highly rated schools at every grade level too, from elementary up through high school. Excuse me. So overall, we're looking at pretty solid public schools. Programs offered throughout the school systems are pretty similar. Each of these areas offer advanced placement. Arlington, Fairfax, and Prince William all have international baccalaureate programs, and they also all have gifted and talented programs. Yes. So keep that in mind when looking at the schools. I recommend, if you have an opportunity to check out the schools when you're visiting, that's absolutely a good idea. But just keep in mind that the closer north you are, the more highly rated the schools are. Now, we live in Southern Fairfax County, and we have had our boys in the public school system for 9 years now, and we've had no issues, right? And so I think that it's really important for you as a parent to just kind of, I say, take the ratings with a grain of salt, because realize where you live or where you'll be living, which is in a really high cost of living area where overall the public schools are rated pretty well.
Yes. All right, last up on our list is weather. So when it comes to weather here, we have 4 seasons here, right? And we don't have any season that long. So you only have the season long enough to know why you either dislike or love the season. If there's a season you love, like I know some of my friends like the winter season because they would like a white Christmas. We don't have white Christmases here. I'm sorry to tell you.
We have white MLK days.
Yes,
because usually it starts to snow around that first or second week of January. Yes. I don't know if we've ever had a white Christmas in the years that we've lived here. I don't think so.
A lot of my pictures with the boys around the Christmas time, they're either something
like in a sweater,
shorts,
yeah.
Like we have interesting weather in December, so all of the seasons don't stay here that long. In winter, it does get cold enough to actually own a coat, but it doesn't get cold enough to own a really fancy coat, because you're not going to get to wear it that often. You may get to wear it maybe a couple weeks, if you have to put that thing up and then move into a sweater or a light jacket. And then we have, after winter time, we have spring, which is a beautiful time of the year. But then that's also the time we have the most pollen, and the pollen here is insane.
It's brutal.
It's insane.
It's brutal.
If you don't have allergies, when you move up here, you may actually develop allergies. Because we live in the nation's capital, there's these trees from all over the world that live here, and they're not supposed to be here.
Yes.
And so your nose may have only been accustomed.
You're used to good old oak trees.
Yes.
And here we come with our cherry blossoms and all of these Japanese maples and everything else. And next thing you know.
Yes. We have what's the magnolia? We have magnolias.
We have
here
magnolia
as well.
trees,
Crepe
like
myrtles that are really more of like a southern flair.
yeah,
We have everything, every tree that you could imagine here.
yeah,
Which means we also have amazing allergies.
yes.
But spring is beautiful because we do have a real winter time. So that means all of the leaves die, all of the trees wither, and then they bounce back in spring. It's a beautiful performance.
Mhm.
But then we get to summer, right? We have to have summer because that's when our pools open. But you'll notice that a lot of homes here don't really have pools in their backyard because we don't really have a long enough pool season.
Or enough space because a lot of people don't have enough backyard space.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't have a really long pool season. Most pools in the area open around Memorial Day and they close for Labor Day.
But even when they open on Memorial Day, most people don't go.
Yeah, we
it's
never
still
go
chilly.
before, usually like the 4th of July.
Yes.
And depending on where you live, another cool thing about North Virginia, just a really quick aside, is that many homes are in HOAs, and a lot of the HOAs have their own pools. And if
Right.
not, if your HOA doesn't have a pool, there's probably a swim club nearby. So summertime, hot, humid, muggy, get prepared for it. But then after summer, that leads us to
fall, which is a banger season. It's
beautiful.
All of the season exists for us to have fall. Fall is so beautiful. The trees do this amazing performance together where they have these beautiful hues of orange and
red and yellow, purple. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. Also, you need to go to the Shenandoah Mountains when the leaves change colors, so then you could see
at the different elevations. It's incredible.
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
Incredible.
And then we're back to winter, and it happens all over again, right?
Yeah.
We don't have any season long enough to dislike it, right?
Yeah.
You can appreciate it, and then it's gone, and then it's off to the next season. Well, that's it. So this is our PCSing to
the Pentagon.
Mm-hmm. So we talked about the location. We talked about the cost of living at the Pentagon, or near the Pentagon.
We talked about commute, the schools, a couple of neighborhoods, and finally what to expect as far as temperature and weather.
Yes. And so if you are somewhere in your PCSing process, right, and you came across this video to find out more information about your new station, welcome to the area. And we would love to talk to you about your transition here.
So Abraham's going to show you now. We have a link in the description to the Perfect Home Questionnaire. So you will fill that out and we'll reach out to you to schedule a time to talk about your upcoming move. We'll chat about your timeline, what you're looking for in your next home, and hopefully how we can help you with that transition.
Excellent. Well, Crystal, this was a great show.
I think so.
It was very speedy.
It was tight 58 minutes.
That is.